Over 1,700 new millionaires are created every single day in the US alone, and more than double that across the globe. They're people from all walks of life, most of them people just like you and I. So the big question is this: how are so many people who didn't inherit money or have any special advantages overcoming the odds and becoming millionaires? That's the question, and this show will give you the answers. My name is Jeff Lerner, and welcome to Millionaire Secrets. What is going on out there? Jeff Lerner here. Welcome back for another episode of the Millionaire Secrets podcast and YouTube show, where we are probing the depths of the millionaire mind and the millionaire successful performer. I am joined by an immensely successful, super smart, and really good friend of mine person named Brian Magnosi. He is the CEO of Magnosi Web Marketing and one of my oldest internet marketing connections and friends. We go back over a decade that we've both been doing this, living this crazy digital nomad life, although we're both married and kind of boring and we don't nomad very much. Anyway, Brian, enough of me yapping. Welcome to Millionaire Secrets.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. Always a pleasure.
Man, usually before these interviews, I try to scour the bio of whoever I'm interviewing and get all prepared and feel like I have all these, intelligent questions or at least an angle. With you, I'm like, screw this, man. Every time we talk, it's just like an entrepreneurial love fest / mastermind. Maybe that sounded weird, especially as we're both wearing pink shirts, but is that politically correct? I don't know. Too bad it's my show. I say what I want.
That's right.
So let's just dive in, man. I'm like totally unscripted and unprepared. We're just going to do what we do.
That's it.
Let's do it. So quick bit of context for everyone. Like I said, we go back over a decade. Summer, I think it was June 2009, right?
Yeah, was.
And you met me technically before I met you, at least via an ad or a video or something. Why don't you tell the world what happened?
We're good. Yeah. So I just went looking online. I was hunting for something more than I had. And, I just was kind of getting into this whole internet thing and still was in pharmaceuticals and as a sales guy, and was a career man there for probably 8 years, 8.5 by that point, and said, I'm looking for something, right? So what am I doing? I'm going to Google, I'm hunting, and lo and behold, I see an ad from you. Hey, how would you like to make $84,369 like I have in the last 61 days or whatever it was? I said, you're talking the language now. And so hey, voila, man, I click on the link. I see this landing page with Backyard Jeff, literally in the backyard. I'm like, this guy is legit. I like him. And that was it, dude. 12 years later, fast forward. We're still here. We're still together. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's been a wild adventure. And for context, so that's back when I was doing straight affiliate marketing.
Yep.
And I was an affiliate of a marketing training program. And it was the same marketing training program that I had used to learn affiliate marketing. So I thought, of all the affiliate offers, we always say, like, pick something you're passionate about. And I'm like, well, this marketing training literally changed my life, dug me out of the ditch, or gave me the tools, I guess, to dig myself out of the ditch. So I'm going to be an affiliate for this because I can speak confidently and credibly about how good it is and what an impact it's had on me. Yeah. So yeah, I started running ads, got really focused on, at the time, Google AdWords and Google search marketing.
Yep.
And I'm excited to say that you bit one of my hooks.
I bid it, man, and dropped $10,000 to the bank via a wire, like within the week. Knees are shaking, going to the bank.
Yeah.
I said, what am I doing?
How did Enos feel about that? Enos is Brian's wife, for those who don't know.
It's nothing but a miracle of God. She actually agreed.
She must have known that you weren't really digging the pharmaceutical gig.
Yeah, she knew the writing was on the wall. But honestly, when she saw your video and then I showed her, the proof and the results, what you were getting and some others, she was just like, we're all in or we're done because where else, what else are you going to do? Was pretty much what she said to me. And we went all in, man.
It's interesting. That was back in 2009. And here we are at the time we're recording this 2020, somebody might be seeing this in 2025. But the reality is the circumstance for so many is it really never changes. People go through this experience, and maybe in 30 or 50 years, it'll be different. Like people won't go get brick and mortar jobs or they won't go get big corporate jobs. They'll just immediately go to the internet, and that'll be their automatic, like their default automatic career path. Right. But when you got started, when I got started, when people are getting started now, and probably when people are getting started 10 years from now, it's like always the same story. It's like, I'm doing the traditional conservative mainstream thing, only I'm seeing signs that it's not all it was cracked up to be, or it's not exactly what I was sold or what I thought I was getting into, whether it's financial, hitting a financial ceiling, or just the time suck or the control or whatever. And then people like go online, and it's like this quest for autonomy and independence. And they find a guy like me, or they find a guy like you. And granted, we do different things now. I guess in a way they still find me with Entra or with this podcast, right? You're in a little different business now, but yeah, I'm telling this story, partly because it's just fun nostalgia for us, but also just because there's like a lot of people that are going to hear this that are probably at that same place in their life, or else, that might be why they're listening to a show called Millionaire Secrets, right? It's like, oh, what's the secret? How do I change my life? And like, it's real, man. I did it. You did it. Thousands have done it. You've worked with people that have done it. I've worked with people that have done it, including yourself. And I just want to encourage people on that journey. So that said, we did the affiliate marketing thing for a while. And interestingly, we both pivoted in a way that I've come to learn is actually very common, where like you learn these skills and then you realize, hey, there's people that would pay me for these skills, right? Lead generation, digital online reputation, managing your digital footprint, right? So talk a little bit about the shift that you made. When was that? 2012?
Right around there. Yeah. And I just was frustrated with, selling the dream, quote unquote. That's kind of where I came to the end of that, because I was frustrated that other people weren't seeing as many results as I was and that you were. And I thought, I don't understand this. Just go get her done, man. Go to work, take action, just be a doer.
Yeah.
Be, do, have. Pretty simple concept. You want to be the entrepreneur, you got to do the things that they need to do to get the job done. And you're going to have the things the entrepreneurs that are successful have. But that ain't rocket science, baby. But it bothered me that others weren't. And so I slammed my fist down one day. I said, never again, I'm done. And so that was instant shift and hard pivot to starting an agency, serving local businesses.
Yeah, isn't it? First of all, it sounded so simple the way you just said it. Oh, just be, then do, then you'll have. But that's not how it plays out so often, right?
Right.
So to all of those who we just said, hey, this is real, you can do it, happens all the time, be inspired. Now we're throwing a little bit of a more cautionary word to the wise of like, listen, it's hard. And a lot of people, I think they think that their off-ramp should be easier than the highway. They're going down the highway and it's hard. They're doing the grind. They're going to a job. How many hours a day were you working in pharma?
That all depends on the week, but sometimes 12 hours a day, 10 hours a day.
And how many days a month were you traveling?
Oh my goodness. A couple weeks.
Couple weeks out of the month. So over 50% of the time you're gone.
Oh yeah. I was gone every day, and sometimes I would be gone for weeks at a time for training.
That's hard. That's like hard work. And yet, so is what you did on the internet harder than that?
In some ways, yes, but some ways, no. So now I'm beginning to reap some of the fruit, some of the seeds sown in the ground years ago, right? But is it is it easy? I wouldn't call it easy. I still think it's hard work, but I think it's a completely different kind of work because I own this thing, right? I mean, this is my baby. Well, my baby's out there. That'd be my little girl. But secondarily, this is like the passion. This is where, you know why? Because I'm making a difference in these business owners' lives today. I mean, people are grabbing me and saying, do you understand that you just sent me another Google lead and you're putting my kids through college? That's an exact quote from a personal injury attorney. And he was dead serious when he told me. And he said, you're feeding me, you're feeding my family, you're putting my kids through college. You understand the impact you're having on us and our employees and all of these lives multiplied. I said, wow. And that's not the only instance. And so I know that I'm making the phone ring for these people. Of course, that's money for them and that's a livelihood. They're thriving. So I get pretty passionate about that. Is it hard to get in front of these people? Yeah, it's pretty tough. But when you're willing to put in the work and you see the result, makes it all worth it. And honestly, there's a lot of money at stake.
Yeah,
a lot of money.
And we're going to get into some of the dollars and cents, which is where the conversation gets really exciting. Because the reality is everybody who feeds a family works hard.
Right.
But it's like, what can you feed your family? Are you feeding them bologna sandwiches, or can you buy? It's not like you got to go to Ruth's Chris 7 nights a week, but I mean, can you at least go to Whole Foods and buy the organic chicken and not have to sweat the $2 extra per breast or whatever? It's like, so, and this is a real passion point for me, because frankly, in 2013, I did the same thing as you. My head, I had no skin left on my forehead because I was banging it against the wall all the time, going like, I did it. Brian did it. We know hundreds of other people that did it. Why are frankly the majority of people not doing it? And I think it's because, like I said, everybody works so hard at their job. I mean, I don't know many people that are trying to change their life, but they're also lazy at their job. Most of the people in my experience that are trying to change their life, they actually work really hard at their job. That's why they're frustrated, because they're giving so much more than they're getting.
Oh yeah.
Right. And yet then they get online. And it's so weird. Suddenly, it seems like a lot of very normal, reasonable, sane people that give more than they get, once they get online, they expect to get more than they give.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely commensurate sowing and reaping, my man. And you put in some seed in the ground. If you and I were going to go plant some seeds in the backyard, right, farming, you're going to get a harvest. But man, you got to put some skin in the game. You got to weed it. You got to water it. You got to tend it. You got to give it time. You got to use some faith. You got to use some patience. All those factors and others, right, all come into play. Yeah, it's definitely hard, but honestly, is it really any harder than what I did before? Being away from my family for 2-3 weeks at a time was brutal. That I will admit.
Yeah, that sounds harder to me. I mean, there's no torment I couldn't endure to get to drive my daughter to school every morning. Yeah. I mean, I literally do. I take Jada to the bus stop every morning at an hour that would be impossible if I was having to get ready to go to work.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I want to talk a lot more about your story and what you do now and how you help people and how you take these skills that are learnable by anyone and you apply them in specific ways to create this amazing life for yourself. But first, because we're there and because it's such a sticking point for me, can you just give your take on what it is that how would I say this? Why is it that so many other people who get online and they're very serious on day one, but they struggle to see it through in the way that you did? And for everybody knowing, or for everybody listening, Brian is maybe you're certainly one of the most successful, quote, students that I ever brought into the online business arena. And when I say you were my student, I mean, I wasn't teaching you with a ruler and a chalkboard. I was just pointing you to the resources and you taught yourself. But, you're one of the more successful, maybe the most, but why, what's with all these other people? What's your take on it?
It still baffles my mind, but I think there's a couple factors at play here. one of the things that I realized, which is why I joined you back in that affiliate gig in the first place, is because I recognized that I didn't have the self-confidence that I needed. I didn't believe in me enough, but you did, right? You saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And you challenged me by virtue of your results and your presence, just even over the phone, that you had something demonstrable that I didn't. I'm like, I want what he has. And it's not just the money. I want more. I want to be more like him, right? I really esteem to be like you. That was a powerful motivator for me because I had grown up being very self-conscious. I was bullied. It was just really not a very pleasant thing in school. So much so I graduated high school early just to get out because I hated it. And I would have graduated in 2 years if I had even known I could have. You know, so I didn't have a great set of circumstances. I grew up in a very lower middle class family, working blue collar type of work by your hand. And there wasn't much confidence being bestowed, right? And it's like, hey, I hope you go get a job stocking groceries, right? At the store. And even though my folks are well-meaning, they didn't prepare me for entrepreneurship because they weren't entrepreneurs. They didn't have that to draw from in the library. So all that said, that backstory propelled me. And then when I saw those things that I wanted in my life in you reflected back in like a mirror, it was a massive motivator. But also there's something in me that most people don't have. And you taught me this one day on the phone, and you said, Brian, it's not the size of the dog that wins the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. And I realized I had some serious fight in me. And I think, honestly, there are too many people out there who are comfortable. They're just comfortable, and comfort is the enemy of greatness. And you've challenged me, even as of recent times, to say, man, stop thinking so small. And I'm so glad you did, because I need to hear that kind of thing when it needs to be called on, right? When it's exposed by my mentors and friends and leadership, because I want to come up higher. A lot of people don't care, dude. They're just lazy, or they're complacent, or they're comfortable, right? It's kind of all thrown in the same bucket. And I realized that I'm just different, right? Internally, I dare to be different. And now I'm starting to have some of these dreams come true because I stuck to that fight for honestly what we're all made for, which is success. Why people don't choose, and it's a decision, to have success is beyond me. I'm like, what are you thinking? You want what, $4,000 a month or $8,000 a month? Maybe you're in a really good career and you got $15,000 a month. Come on, how far does that go these days? Not that far.
Well, and if you're trading the essence, almost the totality of your life to get it.
Yes.
Is the thing.
Oh, and for me, I've always just been a dreamer. You know, Enos, my wife, now be 22 years next month, holy cow, says to me, the one thing I always liked about you was a dreamer, but the one thing I never liked about you is that you're a dreamer, right? Because it challenges her in a way that she's just like, listen, can't you just be happy with just your little job? You go to work and you go to your cubicle and you're just normal. I'm not normal, right? I'm very not normal. And I'm just not wired that way anymore. I want more because it's there and it's for the taking. Anyone can have it. Anybody can have it, because last time I checked, this world does not discriminate. If you want it, come, right? Get it. Now it's not going to come necessarily in a day or week or month, but it's going to come if you're relentless. That's what you are. And that's just got imprinted in me and still is this very day.
Yeah, I appreciate, again, totally. We didn't even talk before the show about what we were going to talk about, but it's like, birds of a feather. I already know where you're coming from and what you're going to say. And I hope everybody that listens to me a lot is hearing in you what I always say. It's like, anybody can, but everybody won't.
Exactly.
But this is literally right there. I mean, I have put 100% of my professional life now into this one message with Entre and with this show. I mean, everything I do now is essentially evangelizing one truth in the world. It is right there for anyone who wants it.
Yeah.
It was true then. And the other thing is, it's not like you have to go, well, maybe it's going to change in 6 months. I mean, I've been doing this 12 years. You've been doing this 11 years. And it's as true today. In fact, it's more true today than it was then. You were just telling me about how you threw up this page on ClickFunnels, this Magnosi Maps page. How long did it take you to put that page up?
Less than an hour.
Less than an hour. And how long ago did you put it up?
Couple of days.
Couple of days. And you already made some sales from it?
Yeah, I've started sharing the URL in the past week, and we've made some sales. Yeah.
You spent less than an hour a few days ago, and it's already, I wouldn't say putting your kids through college, because your kids' college is already paid for, but it's, I don't know, buying their textbooks or something. You know, this is like right there. And when you and I started, there wasn't no putting up a page in an hour on ClickFunnels.
No doubt. Welcome to PHP, my man.
Oh man, do I still, where's the book right here? I don't think this is the original copy, because I wore out the original copy, but this is my PHP for Dummies.
Oh my goodness.
I got HTML for Dummies somewhere around here. I got JavaScript and CSS for Dummies. I even got, hey man, this is how I built Zerly right here out of call centers for Dummies.
Nice. I didn't even know the book existed. Send me a copy.
Oh my gosh. I've learned, this whole dummy series was made for me. It's even a dummy can learn this stuff, but it's not easy. It's not easy. But at the same time, man, 2-3 weeks a month being gone, 10, 12 hours a day, walking into doctors' offices, having to push through gatekeepers, having to make call after call after call. And ultimately, what were you pushing? I don't know, Viagra or Prilosec or,
it's all good.
Prozac. Like, it's not like you were like changing the world.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
I know. But I developed some skill there though. I really
bet.
It's like an axe that you just hone, right? And presentation after presentation, not being afraid to get in front of somebody, a physician who I esteemed very, high in terms of, the hierarchy or the, in
There's
life.
a little bit of ego in that dynamic, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I had to get over being very self-conscious and saying, listen, I'm not afraid to be who I got something your people need. Let me give you 3 reasons why. I developed sales scripts and selling skills and people skills in those years that today I use, and I'm being complimented by people even still to this day because they see I'm a strong communicator, which I appreciate, but that just didn't happen. And again, in a couple of weeks, it took time and years to develop, and I'm going to continue to develop it. I'm committed to mastering sales and marketing for the sake of my potential customers that don't even know I exist. I'm committed to that because I need to for them, for their sake. It'll come back to me, I know, but Jim Rohn said, what? You want to get what you want, help enough people get what they want. That is my mission. That's my mojo, man, right there. That's why I'm here. I'm here to serve.
Yeah, and I know you well enough to know that that's not just lip service. That literally is how you approach it. And I love that you emphasize the power and almost the developmental, the critical developmental nature of sales. A lot of people, the last thing in the world they want to do is sell.
Yeah.
And yet we all like getting paid. I have yet to find a business that can pay its staff that doesn't have sales happening.
Right.
So this sort of ambivalence and mixed feelings around sales, I've never really understood. It is, if I had to say, okay, what is it that from day one I picked up in Brian, and what is it that, it was never a sure thing, but I mean, I certainly knew from day one, hey, this guy's got the intangibles. Like if he commits, he'll do it. He'll be really successful. Probably it's your communication ability is the first thing I picked up. It wasn't that I knew if you were technically proficient. Frankly, you and I both, neither one of us is that technically proficient. I think we both learn enough to be dangerous and to get done what we need to get done, but it's that communication skill. And I can say for myself, same thing, man. When I had these businesses in my early 20s where me and my buddy, I was a piano player, he was a bartender, we would go to college towns And we would drive all around these college towns trying to sell all the local business owners on buying this coupon space on these cards that we invented the whole business basically so we could go hang out on college campuses and hang out with sorority girls. Because we would get the sororities to help us pass out the cards as like, and we would pay them a little. It would be like a fundraiser for them to throw their parties. So that was the business model. But the hard part about it was we'd have to spend a month going door to door to every local business in these little, Stillwater, Oklahoma, and Manhattan, Kansas, and Baton Rouge, Louisiana. These were not like gentle environments. And kind of these rough and tumble business owners, they hated us, man. We were out of town sales guys, cold knocking on their door. They hated us. But same thing as you, man. Those chops to this day pay my bills.
Yes, sir. That is absolutely true.
So 2012, you pivot into starting your own agency, right? Yep. You talked about what prompted that shift. It was like frustration around a lot of people that just weren't, they were buying the training, but they weren't implementing the training, right?
Yeah.
I feel, I was there. And you go into into digital agency and tell me about that. How did you make that shift?
I had a buddy of mine who said, "Why are you not selling digital?" He said, "I made the switch from affiliate to digital for small businesses, maybe 6 or 12 months prior to that." He said, "Do you want to know what my recurring revenue is?" And I don't know what it was, $5,000 or $7,000 a month. Maybe it was 8 or 9 at that point. Not a lot, right? But it was way more than I had, which was 0. And he said, "These people, they just need you. They don't, half the time they don't even know it, but they need help. And you'll do really well." He said, you owe it to yourself to give this a shot. I said, "Okay, will you help me?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll pitch you a few, pointers." And he did. I got my first customer in like a month, my first 2. And one was, I think one was my CPA and another was another CPA. And then I had a referral to another one. And, and that's just kind of how it started. And it took about, 6 weeks or so to have a couple grand a month coming in. But I'm like, even after fulfillment, which I was doing myself in those days, I said, "Hey, that'll pay the rent," right? Back then, I was like, that was the rent we need to get paid for. So that was pretty cool. And these people stuck for years. My very first client stuck 6 years, never missed a payment.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's funny. I was on on the Entre Mastermind group last night, and I always have this saying that I say that basically there's no middle class on the internet. You've got a very large group of people out there, and I say on the internet, I'm talking about internet business people, obviously. There's this very large group out there that are like trying to figure it out. They're, trying to get their first lead or get their first funnel set up, or like they're making no money and they're spinning their wheels and they're frustrated and they're trying to get it to click. But it's like, once it clicks, you don't stay there. Right. Once it clicked, like you started with me in June of 2009. What was your, do you remember by chance how much money you made in June of 2009 with affiliate marketing?
I do. So that very first month I made about $5,500. Okay.
But you were actually coming over from, you had done some dabbling with like, what was it? GRN and those guys.
Yeah. Yep.
So you kind of already had some skills that you were able to bring over. How long had you been in the other things that you'd been trying?
All said and done, it was a year or less that I was in GRN. Yeah.
And that sounds about right. I mean, when I got started, it took me 3 or 4 months to get just a modicum of skills that would allow me to go get any sort of result that somebody would go like, "Oh, that's not a waste of time." Like a few grand, right? But then for me, I went from in 3 months, I went from like, "Hey, I made a few grand," to like, "Hey, I just made 70 grand. Like once you get it, it clicks so fast. So for you, June, you made $5,500. Yeah. Where were you in 6 months?
I think by month 5, I cracked 64,000. That was my best month.
Okay. Then, 5 months from 5,500 to 64,000.
Yeah. That's a good month.
Thank you. Again, I know your story, so I know it's going to line up with the point I'm trying to make, but that proves my point. You went from like, let's say a lower middle class to like upper class in 5 months. You know, if somebody's making $720,000 a year, they're solid upper class, right? So for me, I went from a few grand a month to between 40 and 70 consistently in like whatever, 4 months.
Yeah.
That's my point. Nobody stays between 5 and 10 grand a month online, because why would you?
Not if they're
just turn it up.
Exactly. My first year with the previous opportunity, I made 44 grand. That second year, I made about $250,000. I thought that's a pretty good increase right there.
Yeah, 500% raise in a year. And so that's why I always say there's virtually no middle class on the internet. There's a lot of people that are like, you would call them lower class because they're just trying to figure it out. But as soon as they hit, unless they have a fear of success, they're just going to turn up their ads, turn up their volume, double down on whatever's working, and they're going to scale really fast. But agency is actually kind of the exception to that. When you have a digital agency, you can get to $5 grand a month with a couple of retainers. And then you get a couple more and you get to 8 or 10 grand a month. And then at that point, you got a lifestyle business, right? And you could stop there or you keep going, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what was your journey like when you started your agency? You said it took you about 6 weeks. You got your first couple clients. Now you're at least got your mortgage paid. What did you kind of decide to do from there? I
just realized that I liked it. I liked the idea of recurring revenue. That was a new concept to me because affiliate didn't have very much. It's a couple grand a month, and couldn't pay the bills. So a couple grand a month for me would at least take care of the rent, but that was a starting point. That was not the finishing point. And so there's a major paradigm shift for me, realizing the whole recurring revenue thing. They say cash is king. I say recurring cash is king.
Yeah.
To me,
amen to that, man.
Yeah. And it's such a massive grounding point in a lot of ways, or foundational, when you have this base of recurring revenue. And I saw that. I got a glimpse of that in this first month or two. And I said, all right, how do we push into this thing? And, ended up just saying, all right, let me try Google Ads. I was cold calling. I made hundreds of cold calls. I probably made, all said and done, maybe 700 cold calls in my day. I probably did 300 just in the first few, 6 months or 4 months. And it was brutal. But, started bringing in some more clients, turned on some ads, brought in a few more. And I was just after, man, let's go to Craigslist. Let's go cold calling. Let's, let's ask everyone and the brother. And it took a while to get the real traction. And I can't say that I've arrived today, that's for sure. But I remember the first time I cracked $100,000 in a month. It was like $178,000 in 1 month. Dude, I had never earned that much money in my entire life. Of course, I didn't keep all that because I'm a business. I have to fulfill on those services I just charge for. But I remember that it was a defining moment, it was a lifetime.
Yeah, but you talk about fulfillment with a digital agency. I mean, I used to I run a digital agency. In fact, that award right there is for my digital agency. And so is that.
And one below it.
And so is that, right? Like I did real well with digital agency. And I know what my margins were. I'm curious, whether you're talking 20 grand a month or 200. I mean, I got to think your margin's at least 50%.
Oh yeah. It depends on the service. The margins can be very, very high. For me, I'm much more top heavy in the beginning because you got to push hard. It's like, you got to get that momentum going, like moving the tank. It takes more in the beginning.
And you're trying to deliver a really shockingly good result for your client to hook them fast so they'll stay with you for a long time, right?
Exactly. Because people for years, when you show them the goods, you get a great foot in the door offer, you wow them. It's almost like they're compelled. Let me refer you. How can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
Let me give you more business. Oh, by the way, I have this other firm or this other, that takes more revenue up front. So the first 3 months or so, I'm not really looking at that as much as what am I looking at for the lifetime? And if you do this thing right, depending on the type of service you're offering, you could absolutely have like 70, 80% profit margin, sometimes higher if it's done right, certain circumstances. I've had as much as 90%, 85, 90%. Those are extremely high margins.
Yeah, that's insane. That's completely insane. 90% profit margin, but it's because the real value in the business is your expertise. And expertise, it's expensive to acquire, but it's free to maintain. right? So to the business owner, what's it worth? What you're providing? I mean, let's say you have an attorney paying you $5,000 a month.
Right.
How much lifetime customer value are they getting out of the leads that you're delivering them per month on a $5,000 retainer for let's say a PI attorney, personal injury?
I did a case study for one of my personal injury attorneys in the city side. It's about 300,000 people, and it was between 600 and 800%, depending on the two campaigns that we ran annually. So he put in $1 and made at least $6 back for the entire year.
So if he pays you $5,000 a month, he's paying you $60,000 for the year, but he's making between 360 and 480,000 back 6 to 8 times, right?
Yep.
So then is it fair that maybe that $60,000 only cost you $10,000 to fulfill and $50,000 was profit? Is that fair?
I think it depends. In the beginning, it's a little more top heavy, but I think lifetime, absolutely, it can be, right? It can, yeah, of course. Even 50% margin lifetime is still extremely good for most businesses. They're not used to those kind of revenues.
Most businesses are like stressing to get between 10, their goal is 20, but actually when the year ends, they're like, crap, it was only 9 or something. Like brick it. That's the thing. I hope people are hearing, like, this isn't like two nerds gloating. It's just the reality. Digital business is so good that once you do it,
yeah,
I don't know how you do any other kind of business.
I agree. It's addicting, in all honesty.
So, okay. So you start to get that traction in 2000. How long did it take you to get to where you felt like, hey, this agency, it's solid, it's stable, it's predictable, it's something I can duplicate again and again and again if I need to. This is my gig I'm focusing on full time. How long did that take?
Oh, probably 2-3 years for me. I was a slow, just kind of slow starter compared to what I really wanted, because I was kind of a one-man show, a show of one, and I didn't get scale. And that's where you took off and you just compounded exponentially where I didn't, because I was pretty much just one-man shop and I was focused on high margin, right? More boutique service, quote unquote, because they had my cell phone and everyone's like nights and weekends. And that's, that kind of got old a little bit. Whereas, you pivoted it and you took the scale route. And I think that worked out quite well. In fact, better for you in a lot of ways than for me. But that's where I'm at today. It's like, okay, what have I learned over the last 8 or 9 years? And how can I now do what you did, right? Again, because you're kind of the forerunner, so to speak. How can I emulate what you did to get the result that you achieved? And that's where I'm at today.
Yeah. I mean, and just for people to have context. So I had a big agency. At one point we had almost 60 people on staff. I mean, a lot of that was sales, very aggressive on the sales and lead gen side, but I had almost 60 employees. It was upstairs from here. I think it was about a 5,000 square foot office, kind of jam packed with people pounding phones and doing fulfillment and all this stuff. But that's one way to do it. And so I had a lot of top line revenue, but I was also cutting 55 checks every 2 weeks, right? You, on the other hand, talk about the makeup. Here you are, 8 years later, 8 years of maturity into your business. You've got extremely lucrative business. Maybe on the top line, it doesn't seem as big as my business, but let's talk about your actual operation. Because I always challenge you and say, actually, I envy you. I think your agency is more attractive than what I did, because I had all these people to take care of. Tell me about your operation.
Yeah, lean, mean machine of 5 or less. And pretty much one of those was me. One was my wife doing, the part-time books and stuff like that, and some reporting. A VA who's 20 to 30 hours a week on average, and 2 part-time writers. That's it.
The VA and the writers, where are they based?
The VA is in the Philippines, and the 2 writers are actually American, but I found such a ridiculous deal that just was too good to pass up, because I work with attorneys. I want a couple of attorneys. It was just the perfect storm, 3 cents a word. I'm like, you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah. So you got a part-time VA in the Philippines and 2 writers here. Are you comfortable if I ask, and like literally you can say, nah, that's my proprietary info, I don't want to share. But I mean, ballpark, what's your monthly staffing cost for your business, to the extent you're comfortable sharing?
Oh, it's less than a couple grand.
Less than a couple grand. So you can run a business. And again, I'm trying not to overexpose your personal details because I know your business pretty well, but you could run a 6-figure plus per month business on the staff that you have.
Oh yeah.
You do like, so
Yeah.
you're talking a couple grand. So let's say to bring in 150 grand a month in revenue, your human cost to deliver that is literally a couple grand plus you and Enos, doing some work.
Yep. And, as I've gotten a little bigger, I've also realized that I need to do some different things to get fulfillment done. So my fulfillment costs have risen a little bit. Sometimes I'll take an outside vendor and bring them in under the roof to kind of manage that. Because, when you have some big campaigns, because some of my clients are, again, 6 figures.
Yeah.
That one client was a 6-figure client in a month. Not to mention what he was paying on top of that a year. I mean, I was banging on $250,000 off of one client a year, and so I needed to bring in some outside help so I could maintain sanity. And that's okay. I mean, that's still beautiful because it helped produce more of a quality lifestyle for us. And that's where I'm endeavoring to go, now it's like, how do I get more of that lifestyle? You and I were talking earlier about, time. The older I get and the more money I'm making and want to make, I realize the value of my time. And I've got to make some changes to really maximize that, because what, just like, my daughter's now 15 today. I'm like, I feel like she was 3 just the other day. How did that happen?
Wait, today's her birthday?
No, I'm just
saying today she's 15.
Yeah. Like as in this day, right?
That's crazy. Yeah. Cause when I met you, she was 4. That is crazy, man.
Really fast. And so I want to really value and preserve my time, both with her, with Enos, my wife. And there's some things I'd like to do personally as well that I've wanted to do for decades. And you know what? Right now is not the right time to do some of those things, the fun things. But I know the day's coming. If I start planning now, I'll be able to reap that harvest down the road if I make some right changes and decisions in the business.
And just so everyone's clear, when you're talking about, staffing or increasing your cost of fulfillment, adding some more hands on the deck, like you're talking about things that might bring your margins from 70% to 55%.
Yeah.
Or whatever. I mean, it's not like a normal business. I mean, we're in this era right now. I think we've probably got another 10 or 20 years. It's kind of like Airbnb, right? Like Airbnb came in and there actually is this weird like mental arbitrage happening where they're charging the part of your brain that's used to paying for hotels,
right? But
they're delivering to the part of your brain that's used to renting a house.
Yeah.
And it's like arbitrage in our own brain. Like over here, we're like, oh, $400 a night. Yeah, that's a good rate. I mean, it's way bigger than a hotel room. But then over here, we're like, oh yeah, this is a house. Like if I was going to rent this by the month, it'd be like $1,500, which is, $50 a night, not 400. But Airbnb is like caught this moment that it's going to last a while, but eventually things will probably calibrate to where like Airbnbs can't be the same price as hotels and essentially deliver you a rental house.
Yeah.
Forever. Right. But it's kind of the same thing right now where like digital business has this 10 or 20 year window, I think, where you get to like almost play. It's like playing Monopoly. It's almost like there's elements of it that aren't even real, where like a normal business, if they're like, oh, the CEO needs some more time off, we're going to outsource or we're going to staff up. It would bring the margins from like 18% to like 11%. For you, you're talking about from 70% to 55% or something. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy cool, right? So when you do that, when you bring somebody in to offload the fulfillment, I mean, do you do any of the fulfillment at this point in your own business?
We do. Not me personally. My team does that.
But you personally don't do any of it.
No.
So you're completely focused on bringing in new revenue for your business.
It is. And then I have to oversee the operations. So from a search engine optimization perspective, I have to give direction and I've got to oversee the direction that I've given to make sure it's executed properly. And that's really the extent of what I'm doing these days. And then I just have, my team mostly my VA doing that. And again, part of my content team as well.
So I know that lately you've been really focused on growing the business, bringing in more business, increasing top line. And I'm happy to say, I think I've been part of that initiative and nudging you to think, say, how big can we grow this thing? Right. Cause it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. Honestly, in business, it's actually kind of fun to run up the score.
Yeah. Yes,
But if you were like, hey, you know what, I'm going to take a month and I'm not going to book a bunch of sales calls. I'm not going to be trying to close new revenue. I'm just going to coast. And again, I know your business, like you could coast really, really in style with what you earn in personal income for your family. How many hours a week would you actually have to work if you were not focused so aggressively right now on bringing in more business?
2 or 3 hours a week, maybe at the most.
Say that again.
2 or 3 hours a week, maybe.
Okay. So literally you probably spend as much time urinating as you would have to maintain your business on cruise control right now.
Yeah, it's definitely less than 4 hours.
Because I know you're very well hydrated. So like me, we both pee a lot, right?
I do pee a lot. That is true.
I got my jug here. Right, oh yeah, there we go.
No doubt. So yeah, I mean, when I read the book by Tim Ferriss, 4 Hour Work Week, I thought that was kind of laughable, and I thought, but you know what? If I went into full coast mode, I guarantee I'll be working less than 4 hours a week every week.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. I had somebody we both know, Onyx Singal, on the show several months ago. And we were kind of joking, like, what if we weren't so insanely ambitious? Like, what if we weren't trying to turn a $20 million company into a $50 million company, or like just constantly more, bigger, right? Yep. What if all we wanted was to just live a very comfortable upper middle class life? And I asked him, I was like, how many hours would you have to work to do that? And his answer was pretty comparable to yours. He was like, maybe 30 minutes a day. He would just send an email to his list. He'd find an offer. He'd have his things to promote, and he'd just send one email to his list. And he's like, it probably takes me 30 minutes to write a decent email. This is, and by the way, how old are you?
49.
49. I'm 41. You're 49. I don't know how Onyx is. He's like ageless. I can't tell if he's 70 or 24.
I know.
Right. But the point is, like, it didn't take us 40 years to build these machines that are pretty darn close to providing a great life, almost completely on autopilot. I mean, I don't want to oversell it like it's total mailbox money. Like you said, you still have to manage it. You still have to oversee it, is probably a better word. Yeah. But, you give it 5 years. I mean, you've been doing this for since 2012, 8 years. You've been building your agency.
Oh, yeah.
To the listener, would it be worth taking 8 years to go off the beaten path, learn new skills, maybe have to put up with some people in your life telling you that you're crazy, or you're getting scammed, or you're chasing a pipe dream, or, you're not cut out for it, or whatever? Would it be worth doing that for 3, 5, 8, 12, 15, 20 years to get to where you could ride out into the sunset doing 50, 100 grand a month, or even if it's 20 grand a month, working a few hours a week? Like, I know you agree with me, but like, I hope everybody's listening to this. Like, we're not making this stuff up. Sometimes I feel like Cassandra from Greek mythology. Do you know the Cassandra story?
I don't.
So in Greek mythology, and they call it now, they call it the Cassandra complex, is like what they refer to it as. But Cassandra I think she was a mortal, but somehow she was blessed / cursed by one of the Greek gods to be able to know the future. But nobody would listen to her. So she would go into a town and be like, listen, there's a flood coming. You're all going to die. Get out of town. I can see it in my mind. I know the future. And they'd be like, whatever, you're crazy. And then she'd have to sit there while they all got wiped out and be like, well, I told them, but they didn't believe me. I feel like that sometimes. You know what I mean? Do you ever feel like that?
Oh, absolutely. More so years ago than now, but still, I get the fact that there's a rift. There's this line of separation. It's really almost like a chasm, right? Chasm is bigger than a rift, in my opinion, where this is where I am at today, and this is where I was before. And this is where I kind of grew up, right? The small thinking, there's the small having, the small achieving. I'm thinking it's so irritating and agitating to me that people think small. And then sure enough, guys like you come in and go, hey man, dude, you are thinking way too small. I'm like, that's exactly what I needed to hear, because you get into this place of, I don't know what the word is, just comfort, maybe you get lulled into this false sense of happiness or security, and like, well, this is good. I'm like, well, what about this? You know what I mean? Way up here. So it's definitely progressive, but I see that, and I've actually had to learn, not that I'm making like $100 million a month here, but I'm just saying, I'm realizing more often than not, I got to shut my mouth. I'm not going to just start telling people my dreams, and I'm certainly not going to start talking about, revenue and quote unquote financial success, because number one, they think I would be bragging and being an egotist. And I'm not some narcissist here. I just believe success in a very large scale is for me. Now, whether that's going to be, the level you've achieved or somebody else, I just want to achieve my very best, because I got to run my race. You know what I'm saying? We all do. That's what I want. And I know that I may be here, I'm going to go way up here. And I know it's possible. It's just a matter of time.
It really is. And we're not talking decades either. I mean, you and I kind of, we come and go, we do our own thing, we reconnect, whatever. But I mean, it seems like in the last year, we've reconnected. Obviously, you're doing some work and course development and coaching within Entre, changing a lot of lives with me in our, organization. And during that time, I think you've kind of caught another spark, like another wave of like, hey man, I'm going next level. And you've what, doubled the size of your business in, or maybe it's more than that. I'm asking a question, like how much have you grown your business in how quickly recently?
All said, all in, all revenue. I'm almost quadruple.
And how long did that take?
5 months.
Okay. So I want everybody to hear that. Quadruple revenue, 5 months. We're not talking about normal economic, like rigid rules. This is the internet. You can scale 400% in 5 months. I scaled Entre, in a 6 month period this year, we scaled at 1,700%. Like, it's crazy, people. Hear us. There's a great quote. I was pulling this up when you were talking. Tucker Max. You know who Tucker Max is?
I don't.
He's an author, and he has a service that does book creation for people. But he wrote these really like risque books from when he was like a bachelor living in New York, and it was like all kinds of like carnal and disturbing stories. But he became a New York Times bestseller. Anyways, but he actually has a pretty good Instagram. And he's a really smart guy, but he posted this and it made me think of what we're talking about. He said, lesson learned. I used to help people by doing their work for them. He said, that doesn't go well. Now I tell them what worked for me, help them see what they're missing, and hold space while they awaken and hopefully heal themselves. I can't do work for them, and trying was avoiding my own work.
Wow.
Right? I mean, isn't that where we were in 2012, 2013? Just going, you lead horses to water, but you cannot make them drink.
Absolutely.
Okay. So first of all, congratulations on, I tell you, I've told you this before because we talk all the time, but like, congratulations on your success, quadrupling your agency in 5 months. Because it's an agency. It's not, you still got to sell to do that.
I still have to sell, and people still have come and gone, and we just had a client reduce the campaign by 5,000 a month. Like they went down 5K. I'm like, you feel that, and so I appreciate that. Thank you. It's a process for sure, but what I'm doing is really doing more like what you were doing with your agency, which is growing this thing very stable and kind of getting away from the skyscraper, right, with these mega clients, and just having a whole cater of them so that the base of the pyramid, so to speak, is very wide and stable. To me, this is much smarter. It's a better business model. It is way more stable long-term, assuming you deliver the result. And, I've sort of had a genesis of what we're doing in the agency. And these days, I'm guaranteeing results or money back. And that is not a small statement to make from an agency owner or anyone that I know of. It's very rare that we'll find that offer in the marketplace. But at the end of the day, it's got to be results. I've got to deliver the result. And for me, this has instilled confidence in me that I can go out. Now it's time to scale this, because that's an offer that sells.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to say about you, Brian, is you are a very good communicator. You're also very, very knowledgeable. You know, I was we were joking about how neither one of us are the most tech savvy people, but when it comes to the particulars of search engine optimization and ranking business listings or business websites on the map and the organic search results, or the SERPs, like, you're really, really freaking smart, and you're very, very well informed, and you're very knowledgeable, and you don't just know how it works, but you articulate how it works very effectively to people who may not speak the vocabulary that you do. So you know how to put it in a way that still sounds sophisticated and like an expert, but it's not over their head.
Right.
And I'm saying, I'm saying that to give you a compliment, but I'm also saying that because I want people to realize we're not talking about like some gimmicky shortcut to riches. You still have to be really, really good to be really, really successful.
Yes.
In fact, you have to be excellent. I mean, that's one of the tenets of Entre, right? Is like, there's the excellent and the average.
Yep.
And there's no middle ground, and only one of them is worth being.
Absolutely. I fully believe and embrace the spirit of excellence, and have for years. And I feel like I'm, kind of this pyramid where I'm coming up, and it's getting more and more refined and more articulated, and just a very simple yet obvious and hopefully compelling reason for business owners to want to do business with me, right? That's really where that's the path that I'm looking to take. And so I'm excited about where we are, but I'm more excited about where we're going to go, because I'm on a mission to help at least 1,000 business owners get that phone to ring, get on the top of Google. It's where the money's at. And it's just a matter of time, right? Just a matter of time. It's pretty exciting stuff.
So what is your goal right now with your business? Where do you want to take it?
Well, I mean, for me, assuming I get some things in place, ideally, I want to bring in another 100 customers by the end of this year. That's a pretty hefty statement to make, because that's a lot of work. And frankly, I'm not entirely sure that I either can or want to do that alone. Hence, sales team and again, beginning to scale.
What's your average retainer size?
It's all over the board right now, because we've had what we call these skyscraper. Some clients are paying $10,000 a month, some are paying $5,000, some are paying $2,500, and some are paying $500, right? It really kind of depends. But moving forward, we're going to want to pare those numbers down, so that the average foot in the door sale is going to be probably $300 to $500, something like that, with a minor fee up front. And then eventually, as you wow them, they're just going to give you more business, because that's the way it works. So we'll probably have an average client value or retainer of, I would say, maybe $1,000 to $1,500 a month as we even things out with scale.
Okay. So on 100 more clients, that's another $100,000 to $150,000 a month, which is probably net, between net 50 and 100 for you, maybe a little more for you and the fam.
Yep.
It's not too shabby for a business that's got, I mean, even at that point, you'll still have less than 10 people in your whole company.
That's true.
And that's on top of what you're already doing. That's just growth we're talking.
Yeah, dude, that's some pretty solid rev. And again, it's not, me with an office and 25 people and that kind of thing. It's not that. So obviously there are a lot of benefits. And because we don't have that being us being home-based, dude, we can get the job done from anywhere on the planet.
Yeah. I mean, you're at home right now, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, how did you learn the skills? How did you get so good at SEO?
I'm still learning, put it that way. So, you know what? I'm an incessant buyer of courses and products and mentorship. And I have spent at least 6 figures personally on that. So it's been a process, and I never stop learning. I'm constantly hunting. Is there a better way? And, I'm a bit of a tinkerer when it comes to that. And I was accused that even, today. I'm like, well, I ain't Tinkerbell, put it that way. But But Tinkerbell, I know from my daughter, right? Growing up, she likes Tinkerbell. She's always trying to figure stuff out. That's me. I'm kind of known as Mr. 50 Questions. I want to know why it works and how does it work. And that's part of the reason I never stop learning.
Mm-hmm.
Can't. Because
I've observed you to be like uniquely, or I should say rarely, like consistent in the self-education to a rare degree. I don't find a lot of people that are as committed to constant and never-ending personal growth and professional growth as you. Learning and educating. And when you're my go-to expert. I mean, if I have an SEO question, I don't go on Clarity and book a call with someone. I hit up Brian. And, again, it's like there's no substitute for just, tradecraft, whatever your thing is. Yeah. But if you, and that's, we're almost out of time, but I hope if anybody takes away from this, it's like, okay, this Brian guy, he represents a whole world of possibility, which is invest in being excellent at the right things, things that have a lot of leverage, and you can create an extraordinary quality of life for yourself with fairly minimal headaches.
That's true.
I mean, obviously you're doing biz dev, you're closing new business, trying to bring in more clients, but like on a daily basis, is there anything else that's stressing you out?
No, I've been working really hard to clean things up in terms of diet, rest, exercise. I've taken some time off from triathlon to just kind of heal up and just take those valuable energies and apply them toward the business of growth, because growth demands energy. Just does. And if you want to perform at a high level, much like an elite athlete, you got to be on your game. You have to be prepared for that. You've got to have good, clean diet, right? Proper hydration. You got to get the rest that you need. Those are things a lot of people don't think about when it comes to successful entrepreneurship. And those are just some of the things. There's certainly others. Make sure your spiritual growth and, you're in a good place there, because that is the single most important thing is to have that, to be in the right place for that. So all those things combined, I'm really after. I have to.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I know you. I mean, I know you again, that these aren't just platitudes. Like physically, I mean, you've done triathlons for a long time. I know you've kind of backed off of them lately. Competitive level skiing.
Yeah.
It's something you've done a lot of. Your diet, you're very rigorous about your diet. I remember when you came to visit me out here and we had to I forget what we had to do. We had to go to the store and load up on, you had like a specific regimen with vegetables and juicing and stuff. And you're a great embodiment to me of the truth of like how you do one thing is how you do everything. Like it's very rare, and I'm sure you would agree, to find a very successful entrepreneur who's a total train wreck in their family life and with their health and they're sloppy in communication and they're late to appointments. And like, you're kind of either excellent or you're not.
That is absolutely true.
And it's a decision. That's not like a cocky thing to say. It's not that, oh, I'm excellent. It's no, I decided to practice for excellence.
Absolutely. And that's just exactly it. You make that decision and then you practice. And I don't always get it right. When I don't, and I'm quick to repent and ask for forgiveness, quote unquote, especially from my wife. Hey, I've been married a little while, so I'm learning a few things. So it's a process, man. That's really what it's all about. And I embrace the process. And I'm really excited to be able to hang with guys like you, because I want to really, I don't know if it's the word model or mirror or emulate, but something along those lines. But when I see something done right and going well, of course I want to model that. I want to embrace what's good, what I see in somebody else, and apply that in my own life over time. That's the thing. It's like you got to have some patience, but you got to be consistent. Consistency is king, man. You have to be consistent.
And it's the rarest. It's the rarest attribute in the world we live in.
Yes, and
right?
Having that passion internally, that fire that just says, I refuse to quit.
Even with clients, you tell them, I know, because I've been your client. You're like, listen, man, if you're going to do this, you got to sign up to give it enough time to work. Consistency happens on the buy side too.
Yeah, it sure
right?
does. Right? I don't do contracts with clients, but I tell them you need to commit.
Yeah.
You just do.
And again, we're out of time, so I'm going to quickly bring this to a head. I know you run a B2B agency, so you're not doing the dog and pony show like me, trying to grow your follower count and all that stuff. But where would you like people to go if they want to know more about you, whether it's personally, professionally, whatever you want to share?
Yeah, they could just go to magnosimaps.com, and that's a great place to learn more about. That's a sub-brand of Magnosi Web Marketing. So one is geared specifically to attorneys because we're focused there. But Magnosi Maps, we can serve just about any local small business that needs to be on the top of Google because they need that phone to ring.
Awesome, man. And I just want to let our audience know that we set up a special offer in conjunction with having Brian on the show. It's if you go to millionairesecrets.com/Brian M, you can download a free copy of our digital book, The Millionaire Shortcut, which will teach you the fastest way to become a millionaire in the new economy. Brian, this has been amazing. We'll talk again like in a week, I'm sure. So it's not like some tearful parting, but this has been great having you on the show. Thanks for being a guest on Millionaire Secrets, man.
Thank you for having me, man. It's been a pleasure as always.
Wonderful. And thank you out there for listening and watching the show. We will see you on the next episode. Thank you for watching Millionaire Secrets. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and leave us a comment below. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you know whenever we release a new episode. Also, if you want to learn the fastest way to become a millionaire in the new economy, click the link in the description below to claim your free copy of my book, The Millionaire Shortcut. And don't forget, Millionaire Secrets is available on all the major podcast platforms as well. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you can listen on the go. Thanks for watching.